Great. Well, thank you, Bronwyn and Jodi, for joining me today. My name's Elaine and I work at Children in Scotland. I'm the Policy Manager, Participation Engagement. And today we're going to have a bit of a chat about being online, about digital life for people, young people, especially over the last few months. So thank you, Bronwyn and Jodi, for giving your time to join us. So we'll do a little introduction. My name's Elaine, work at Children in Scotland. I'm 47. I live in Edinburgh and I like dancing and I miss dancing at the moment, I have to say. Miss the aerobic classes. Bronwyn, do you want to go next? Introduce yourself.
Yep. Hi, I'm Bronwyn. I'm originally from Ayr, but I moved to Edinburgh to attend university and I'm 21 years old. I like cats.
Great. And Jodi?
Hi, I'm Jodi. I'm 16, currently an S5 pupil. I'm in North Lanarkshire and I can't see myself leaving North Lanarkshire ever.
Oh, that's nice. So you love North Lan?
Yeah, we'll say that.
Very good. So lovely. Thanks so much, ladies, for joining us. So we're going to talk about digital life, and I know things were different, obviously, around about February this year, and things changed very much when COVID hit. And life has gone online a lot more for lots of us, but not everybody. So we thought today we would just share what's been good and what's been challenging over the last few months being online, maybe to help other folk who are your age, who want to hear from people their own age, or for adults who work with young people who want to know about more about what works online and what doesn't. So we'll just have a chat about different aspects of life, I think, won't we? Shall we start with going back to pre-COVID and the age you're at? What were you doing online? What was digital life like for you before COVID? Jodi, I don't know if you want to go first. What were you doing online? What was working for you? What wasn't? Way back.
Before COVID, my online life was just posting random memes to my Facebook. That was it. There was nothing else really. I just used it to keep in contact with like friends I'd made through youth work and all that, which did come in handy later on, but nah, I didn't really use it at all.
So it was sort of, relaxing time, being with your friends, a bit of a laugh, light-hearted.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah. And Bronwyn, what about yourself?
Yeah, kind of the same, just social media, but also to do uni work and submitting your essays and stuff like that. But it was just really that, social media and essays and stuff.
Yeah. So it was submitting essays as opposed to studying online, particularly at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it was March and we were all getting on with our lives, but then it suddenly became clear that things were going to change for some time. So what was the initial change for you from a digital point of view? What changed immediately? For me, my job was going out and about half the time working directly with children and young people, and that stopped immediately. And we started engaging with folk online. That was my initial change. And then, of course, not seeing my friends and family, and suddenly having Zoom calls with my great auntie and things like that. So what about yourself, Bronwyn? Going back to March, if you can remember, what was that big change for you, if there was?
Yeah, that kind of similar thing of, everything just went online. So all my classes shifted from being online, and that was kind of being all hectic and people trying to understand how to access classrooms and stuff like that, and setting up times so that it could all work for even international people. And I remember it just being very frantic and stuff.
Of course, yes, because lots of international people obviously went home, didn't they? Or not. Some people didn't go home and get everything online really quickly.
Yeah, it was hard to make it all work for people, and that was at the first few weeks. It was just trying to glide seamlessly into it. So it was. And
did it feel stressful, or was it okay?
Yeah, it was very stressful because you didn't really know what you were doing. I suppose nobody really knew what they were doing, but it was scary. That's the word I can think of.
Yeah. And Jodi, how about school? I don't know if that was the biggest change for you. I suspect it was going back to March.
Definitely was. I went between March and August. I didn't have any contact with my teachers whatsoever, besides 100-character comments on work from Teams. that was pretty much the only time I was actually getting to speak to people, finding out what was happening. Also, a big change for me is my parents are divorced. So my dad is a single parent with me, and I didn't really see my mum a lot through the measurements until government guidance said that I could actually split between houses because I was under the age of 18.
Yeah. Wow. So that is a big change in your personal life as well as your school life.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, shall we try and focus on a few areas over that COVID period, and maybe we'll talk about what's been challenging, because there have been things that have been challenging, but maybe there's been some positives there as well. Because we found working more online with young people that there's some barriers to a lot of young people taking part. But actually, for some other young people, they've really gained from that online engagement. It feels like a safer space for them. They're in their own environment and they can choose to have cameras on, or things like that. And so there's been positives and challenges in our experience. So I just wonder if you want to share what you found over the last few months, or what your friends have experienced, just to give us some stories about that. So where shall we start? Shall we start with education? Because that, you're both in some kind of form of education. So Jodi, you were saying there that there were some challenges, obviously. So you were in school full time, suddenly you're at home. How did it manifest itself? What was the journey of that school experience for you? What were the positives? What were the challenges?
I think everybody knows that in the first week of lockdown in the UK, Teams crashed for a long time. I think it was like 4 or 5 days that Teams just wasn't working. And that's when teachers were trying to just give you like a bulk load of work, saying, get this to me before the end of June, pretty much. And so work you'd submitted was lost. It's very like, you just weren't expecting it. Still trying to learn was just almost impossible, because when you don't have somebody like there for you trying to like encourage you and pressure you, not pressure you per se, but good pressure to say you need to do the work, this is your deadline, to just have the feelings of, oh, I'm teaching myself now. I've been given a PowerPoint and I have to write an essay. I've never wrote an essay for this subject before. How do I do this? So it was just a lot to take in.
Yeah. And so are you saying that obviously in that first couple of weeks, we're all making it up, weren't we? That was it. I think some schools were better set up for that than others. How about as the time went on? Did it get any easier? Did you feel that you got more support? Did you get a sense that the teaching staff were getting a handle on it, or not?
I don't think we could have got much more support than we did. My teachers are absolutely amazing, but there's not much you can do. But especially my humanities department, they gave us the Edmodo to like message them any questions we had. And I remember I was sitting at like 10 o'clock at night panicking about a history essay, and my teacher was responding to me just like, don't panic, it's fine, there's a lockdown, you'll survive. And
that's supportive, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was really, really good, especially also waking up whenever you wanted and kind of working on your own hours. As someone who wakes up at 12 and stays up to about 3 in the morning, that was brilliant. So there was benefits. It was difficult, but when you kind of got over the initial shock of I'm online now, then you could actually start teaching yourself. You were like, this isn't actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. But I do understand that not everyone had the same experience as I did.
Yeah. So you felt you got into routine eventually, and you and your teachers got into routine. There was support there. You could reach them.
Yeah, eventually.
And how about university then, Bronwyn? I think you're in your senior years at uni, so you're probably not due to be in class as much, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, you're not really in class that much, but you do have a couple of classes normally in person. But yeah, they got all switched online. And it wasn't too bad of a shift to online, because the unis already did like online courses and stuff like that. I think it was just more of everyone else trying to understand it, which was difficult. And yeah, I think the emotional side of like, oh we've got all of this so much coursework due and stuff like that, and like, oh, how do we handle this when everything's going on? They were quite understanding with that and offering more support, like what was mentioned, like emailing us late and stuff like that, and the support services just kind of listening to us and just understanding more. That was good.
That's good, because sometimes we worry that being online, you lose that support, you lose those relationships that actually lend a lot of support, and just a little smile from somebody, or can really support you. But I think you're both saying that people started working out how to give that support just in a different way. Yeah.
Definitely.
Interesting. And now, well, Jodi, you're back in school. How does it feel looking back? Do you miss the days where you could get up at 12 and work till 3? Is that?
Well, I'm not going to lie. The government claims they have compliance and schools are safe, but you don't feel safe in them. That's a view shared amongst a lot of people in my school. Not specifying the younger years, but a lot of people just aren't wearing masks, and it's genuinely petrifying. I'm at a very small high school for Lanarkshire. I think we only have about 870 pupils, but just the idea of maybe 200 people not wearing a mask and then walking about, you don't know, you then find out someone at your school's tested positive, you don't know who that is because they can't tell you names. It's educational sense, you're learning more, but your teachers are going off self-isolating. Your teachers tested positive with COVID. Oh, well, what can you do? Because I've been getting notifications on Teams saying, here's 3 weeks worth of work, get it done by the time I'm back. So we're sitting in class doing nothing.
So do you think, I don't know if you've thought about this, but do you think in the future we should think about what education looks like in Scotland, whether it's university or college or school? Like, do we keep with this traditional sense that we go into a room and we sit together and we work together? Do we keep going with that more digital way, or a blended way forward, do you think? Have you given it any thought? If you could wave your magic wand, what would education look like for you?
I think you should have like a blended learning model, not in place necessarily because of COVID or just for the remainder of the pandemic, but I do think we should always have blended learning. But then you don't want digital exclusion, and the model that we do have in schools right now, no matter how systematically flawed it can be at times, if you say to everyone you need a laptop, there was government promised laptops, but they haven't exactly appeared in the capacity they were going to. So now it's really complicated, and I feel sorry for the politicians.
Very hard choices to make, isn't there? And what about from uni or college sense then, Bronwyn? What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say I agree that it should be like that blended approach, as certainly for myself, from lockdown it was the online teaching, and it still is the online teaching now. It's quite, the toll is taking an effect on me and many other university students now, not having that interaction with other students and stuff like that. It just is so lonely, so having that, I think it's necessary to have that some type of interaction just with other students and with your professors and stuff like that. Just have a wee chat.
Yeah, exactly. It's the relationship support, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so we've agreed then that there was a period that was really hard at the start of lockdown. We got into a rhythm of using online resources that were okay, and there were some positives, but we wouldn't replace meeting up with people face to face with digital completely. We'd maybe have that blended way forward. Yeah. Okay. So what about friendships then? So you've both touched on maybe, family relationships or friendships. How's that been in the last 7 months? Not being at school, not seeing your friends at university. How has digital life supported that or not supported that? Bronwyn, do you want to share?
I would say, yeah, that's been quite one of the hardest parts, not being able to see families and friends. During lockdown, I wasn't able to get home, but I had to stay where I am for my university. Um, and I suppose it was good to be able to like FaceTime my mom and stuff like that, and to also kind of still send stuff like wee cards and stuff. That was still nice to have that interaction, but it was hard to have that physical distance away from everyone and friends who have gone back to like international countries, other international countries. Not even sure if you'll get to see them again and stuff like that. That's quite hard, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So again, you're saying that being able to go online to chat is fine, but to actually see somebody in the flesh is necessary. Like we need to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the same. So there's your family, but what about friends your own age? Are you using digital platforms at the moment to be able to keep in touch?
Yeah, very similar to this, doing like Zoom quizzes and stuff like that, and like just kind of fun activities, games and stuff like that, multiplayer games, and just having big chats like this. That's the main way that I've kind of been keeping in contact with those that I cannot see.
Yeah. So I need to ask, my husband's really into board games, and some of them he can play online with his mum, which has been lovely. So what games would you recommend?
What's that one that's recently came out? I played it a couple of times. I can't remember the name of it. It's like I forget the name of it.
It'll come back to you, but
it'll come back to me.
Yeah, there are things at work, aren't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've done quizzes as well, yeah, at work. And then what about yourself, Jodi, then? What about, I know that you couldn't see a lot of your family either. I don't know about your friends. How was that in lockdown?
Yeah, like similar to Bronwyn, like we had like resident Zoom calls every night, like 12 of us, which was chaos. So would not recommend 12 people on a Zoom call. However, it was just really good talking to people. My dad didn't appreciate it though because the walls in my house are extremely thin and he had to hear me shouting at all hours. But no, I think while it can never replace the face-to-face contact you have with people, if it wasn't for technology during COVID, I think I can say for everybody that we'd all have struggled a lot more, because it was really good talking to your friends over like group calls and all that. Like we still do them now because a lot of my friends I know through youth work, so we're spread out across the country, so we can't exactly see each other. So it's really good to like still talk to them and keep in contact, know what's happening. So yeah, technology has its advantages.
Yeah, and I think it has kept us going, hasn't it? Not everyone has got the ability to do that, but those of us who have been able to do that, it has kept us going. And every Sunday, my family have a Skype chat, and that will keep going forevermore now. That's it. There's no escaping that. That's been so successful. And it's, a phone call sometimes at work, we have days where we just speak to each other on the phone. We don't have face-to-face because actually sometimes we find it a bit exhausting being on, face, like Zoom and things all the time. But on the other hand, for my mum and dad, they've really liked being able to see us. I think that's made a difference to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what about hobbies then? So I was saying I miss going out to my dance classes. It's, I can do them in my front room. It's not quite the same being there with other people and hearing the music. What about yourselves? What hobbies have you been able to keep going, or what have you lost over the time?
I mean, anyone can say that when you start doing youth work takes over your life. I think I'm a member of like 5 different groups at the minute, which they weren't stopping during COVID. So that really kept me going, was just like, oh, do you want to come on a call with your friends tonight? I can't, I've got about 7 meetings today, sorry.
Wow,
it ranges from like your locality to your council to like even COVID response groups and all that. Children in Scotland were absolutely amazing because I'll always remember Chris just every Friday like, hi guys, just a wee update to check you are doing okay. So everyone on the panel was absolutely amazing as well. So it was just really good to like keep talking to people.
Yeah, that's it. It was being connected, wasn't it? And I'm glad that you could say that youth work's done that for some young people. That's been really important in their lives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so you're busy doing that, Jodi. What about you, Bronwyn? So you're doing some gaming, you're doing some quizzes.
Yeah, I also used to play football as well, but yeah, I used to play it with the uni, just not actual official teams, but recreational. So you would do it once a week. You just it was mostly just go for the chat really. But of course that got cancelled. And it briefly came back a couple of months ago, and I was able to go play a couple of games. But since the new restrictions are announced, sadly that's been cancelled again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been hard not being able to do that, have that little bit of exercise every week and having that social aspect of it. Yeah, that's been a bit difficult.
And it's hard losing it once we got it back, and then we've had to lose
I
it again.
know, yeah, like that, just that little taste of it, and it was so nice, and I thought, oh, it's going back to the old ways, but then, yeah, sadly, it's happened again.
I don't know if you're like me, and in that time, sort of August time, where we could see our friends and go out for meals or whatever, I met up with a couple of my friends, and we had a meal around this big table in a place near me. And I'd kind of forgotten how to speak to somebody face to face. It felt a bit strange the first time. Did you find that as well?
Yeah, I was keeping so much distance. It was well over like 6 meters. I was keeping away from people. I was just I didn't know how to interact with people anymore, and I'm certainly not hugging them anymore. And
I
I've
know.
very changed myself very much. So I have.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks, Jodi, for mentioning the project you do with us. So you're on the Panel in Europe project with Children's Scotland, aren't you?
Yeah.
And Bronwyn, you've been doing the Living Museums project with us. And it's now time for you to be completely honest about it. And, you know, what we'd normally have done, we would have met you all face to face. And I think, Jodi, at the start of the project, you were meeting face to face. You know, you had quite a lot of meetings where you got to know each other, whereas the project we did with Bronwyn was, from the beginning, it was online. So it's hard. We've had to change our way of working. We had at least one bit of positive feedback from Living Museums from one of the folk that took part and said, actually, that in those weekly online meetings, we did manage to bond somehow. You know, it maybe was different to normal, but he did say he felt that we'd bonded a bit. So we felt like, oh, thank goodness, you know, a little bit reassured there. But what from those projects, what worked and what didn't from your point of view? I don't know, Bronwyn, if you want to go first.
Yeah, kind of similar to what you said. I think we did kind of bonds with it, even though it was all online. We did have that bond, and I loved chatting to people every week and hearing all these different ranges of opinions and stuff like that, and interacting with different people's ages. And I really liked it because it kind of made me forget about everything that's going on with COVID and stuff. And it was nice to have a project to focus on and just distract myself, which I really liked. Just doing that every week, and that was really helpful. I really enjoyed that.
Great. So even just being in a project full stop is something to take our minds away from COVID.
Yeah,
But then
absolutely.
seeing the same people, getting to meet new people and then seeing them every week, that's a thing, that's a positive as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, remind you about the artwork that we did together, but I don't know if you found any of the activities we did that worked better online or was more challenging online.
No, I think they worked quite well. I think the quiz that we did a quiz at the end, so we did, and that was a lot of fun. Because you could really just see how much we bonded over it and everything, even though it's all online. And it was fun to just answer the questions and just kind of having a laugh. And they worked really well. I liked the activity.
Yeah, so having activities, having a laugh, and but actually achieving something, you were saying, is being part of that project to keep you busy as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what about Panel in Europe then, Jodi? Because obviously that's changed, you know.
Yeah.
For you, or what was difficult?
I joined the panel at phase 2, so I didn't join until December.
Right.
So we had 2 meetings in person, met with the First Minister, had another meeting on, like, I think it was the Saturday before the lockdown was announced.
It was, yes.
And then that was it. And it was that quick change, especially because we'd met on the 14th of March. And then all of a sudden it was like, you thought you were meeting next month? No. But honestly, cannot praise everybody on that panel enough, like, because the move was so seamless, especially because children in Scotland especially use Basecamp to keep in contact with everybody. So already having the online presence of like the charity beforehand, it didn't feel as forced as school going online. It was just like, yeah, we do it anyway. So, but I felt as if meetings were a lot more frequent once we were in lockdown, and I understand that was more everything speeding up at the same time as we just want to keep everyone in contact, and they didn't pressure you if you could make a meeting due to anything else. So it was genuinely like really good. I can't praise the panel higher.
Oh, that's so good. It's good to hear that it seemed seamless to you. And you know, we worked hard at it, but we did, because we were online. That's a good point, to be honest, that we were online to a degree anyway, whereas schools not so much, some schools, but not so much for education. So that's good to know that you could tell that. And I like to hear that regular contact, you found that reassuring as well, because we tried to do that with our other group, Changing Our World, our advisory group. And we've known them for 3 years. So it was, you know, we were in it together, and we were having every week or 2 weeks, we were having meetings and just seeing each other. Now that's changed now that everyone's gone back to school, but it helped us as well to know that you were all okay. Like, that was really good to know. And it helped us not feel sad about things as well. Yeah.
I genuinely felt as if with a lot of my groups, I felt as if going online was just very forced, but with Children in Scotland, I felt as if you genuinely cared about our well-being.
Well,
Because,
that's good to know.
like, a lot of stuff happened during lockdown in my family and that, and I just kind of sent Chris like a message, and it was just like, don't worry if you can't be involved in panel stuff, just let us know how you're doing. And then like 3 days later, I'd get a message like, hi Jodi, just checking how you're doing. And I'm like, that's the kind of like contact that you needed during that lockdown.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that any other person I work with other charities and local work and that was terrible, but I just think that the work done by Children in Scotland was genuinely phenomenal.
We managed to balance it.
Yeah.
No, good to know. Thank you. Okay, so let's try and, that was a lovely positive note, thank you. But let's try and think, we've talked about what it was like before COVID, and then how education was affected, our friendships, our hobbies and things. What are we going to take away from this experience? This experience will finish at some point. Life will change again. It just doesn't feel like it at the moment, but it will. But what do we want to take away from that experience in the last 7 months? Like, what we're going to learn from it? What we're going to take with us? What we're going to keep? That's a hard question.
I think it's very good, the online, especially for people in rural communities, because, for example, one of the people in the Europe panels from Orkney, so can't necessarily come to every meeting. However, I've never seen somebody come to more meetings in my life than when they went online. So I think that even if it was like, we're having a meeting this Saturday, however, an hour after the meeting, we're going to do an online session if anyone couldn't make it but wants to come this way. So just, again, that kind of like blended model would be absolutely brilliant, because what you will notice during this is that you've now got friends all over the country and no idea how to see them. So I just think that keeping the digital is really important, but we do need to appreciate that we'll be able to talk to each other and have a conversation.
It makes it more accessible, doesn't it? And more inclusive in some ways, not always, but like geographically, for example, that means that people can, there's a sort of balance, isn't there, between folk who live centrally and now it's okay, it doesn't matter where you live, we can engage, and we're all used to it now, so it wouldn't feel any different.
Yeah.
A good point. Okay, Bronwyn, what we're going to take forward?
I would kind of just say the same, actually. Yeah, just kind of being inclusive for everyone. And what you kind of mentioned earlier on about making people feel comfortable about turning on their cameras and with their microphones and stuff like that. I think that awareness should be taken forward, and just knowing that some people aren't comfortable with that, and we should try our best to make people feel comfortable no matter what they're doing. We should take that forward.
Yeah, because we do that in person. You know, if we knew that folk were feeling uncomfortable, they wanted to sit in a separate room, or they wanted to write instead of speak, we would do that. So it's taking that online and working that out. That's what we've been doing over the last few months, is working out those needs and interests that people have. How do we support that in a digital way? And we found that we can do a lot of it digitally. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So yeah, I think you're right. Giving people choices, as long as we can get folk online, that's what we need to think about, is that making sure people have the access to it. But once we have the access, there's lots of positives from it, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else that you thought you were going to share in our chat today that you wanted to get off your chest about online digital life, or anything that you'd wanted to share from the last few months? We covered everything.
I was just going to briefly, it's more about the project, the Living Museums project. I was just going to mention that we highlighted a whole range of issues within it, and I think that was so important. Even though there was a whole other thing going on, COVID was going on, we still managed to highlight all these issues that are still important, especially through COVID. And we kind of brought them to attention, which I thought was great. And I felt as though everyone was listening to each other, and not only we're all listening to her, but like the response we got on social media, they were actually listening to us as well, which I thought was great. Like, it was just wholesome and welcoming, I guess, that environment, which was great.
And did it remind us that there is life out with COVID?
Yeah, and you can have that contact and you can reach out and that communication. Yeah.
And also that there were big issues. So Jodi, you'll not know much about this, I don't suppose, from our project, but we looked at museums, and then we looked about how do we make museums more engaging for people sort of late teens, early 20s, and we covered a whole range of stuff, didn't we, Bronwyn? There's a whole load of really important issues like mental health, employability, about additional support needs, wasn't there?
Yeah, inclusivity. Yeah. Did you say employment? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say? And then housing.
Yeah.
I think that was housing, and then
So
representation
as well, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I hadn't really thought of it like that. That we're also obsessed with COVID, but actually, this work means that we can keep going with our other lives that are still important. Yeah.
Yeah, it was saying these issues are still affecting everyday life, even during COVID, and they still need to be addressed, even during this horrible time. And we did that. I feel as though we did that.
Yeah, good. And then, Jodi, anything that you wanted to share?
Yeah, probably just like a really big thing was the social media campaign that the panel in Europe did.
Of course, yes.
Because I forgot about that until there, but we don't mention that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I didn't have much to do with the social media campaign because I wasn't that active at that moment. But I think we got like really high levels of engagement and all that, and it really helped us form a recommendation, which I should now officially / unofficially kind of promote, because that'll be out soon.
Go for it, absolutely, it's important.
Just, I feel like we've taken the online stuff and just really ran with it. I think we're technically having a virtual launch for the recommendations, if we can find out a way to do that, if the Scottish Government ever get back to us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just think that it's not been the easiest, but I think that we've definitely done more than I was expecting us to be able to do online.
Great. So both projects, actually, we've met online, we've managed to develop things online, achieve things online, and then use digital platforms to reach other people and have an impact. So that's a very good way to finish. I like that. Yeah. So I'm just going to say thank you so much to you both for your time today. And we hope that people will find this chat interesting and useful. And I really appreciate you both being really honest about the challenges of the last few months, but also the positives. And that's been really good to hear. So thank you to you both.